Well, I didn't get the phone number written down, so
I
what?
wrote it in the chat. Do you guys, are you guys using in the chat? And
I'm on I'm on my phone, so I
okay, so my number is 610
uh-huh.
247 9964.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'm gonna start out today. Rebecca was gonna say hi, so let me put Rebecca on just real quick. Wait, Rebecca's just gonna say hi, and her artwork is awesome. I will show you guys her artwork too. So it's always really nice to have, for me over the years, I've had a lot of young artists in my studio, and I highly recommend it. You know, being able to connect with youth has been essential to my creativity and my intuitiveness, and kind of, I just think it's important. So if you have children in your life that you can make art with on any level, even volunteer, or if you know a young photographer, I really feel very strongly right now it's more important to connect with a 20-year-old who's a woman who's trying to be an artist. I cannot even imagine what they're going through. And so if you know anybody, or even put an ad out on Facebook for a local, you know, young female photographer to come work with you one day a week, whether it's cleaning your studio, watching you work, setting up flowers, um, going clothes shopping, like whatever. I mean, okay, so, but Rebecca's here with me, and she reached out to me on the internet. She sent me an email. I was like, oh my God, please. Right. So she's been amazing and great to have her around. Super helpful. So here, I'll let her say hi.
Hi, everyone. Hi. I said hi to a few of you already. Hello to everyone else that joined. I'm excited for today. How is everyone? Good. I'm actually glad that Leah works with so many women, and you know, I love seeing all of you, because sometimes I hear about like there's not that many female artists and it's all men. And I'm like, that's not, I mean, maybe that's true, but I love just, you know, working with women and seeing all you guys. So it's great. Yeah. All right. Well, have fun, you guys. I'll give Leah back.
All right, I got my whole family backing me up on my battling my Wi-Fi like he's a big dragon that's holding me down. So I'm going to show you guys a slideshow. I went to the San Francisco Art Institute and lived in the Bay Area for about 11 years. I went to the California College of Arts, which is located in Oakland, California. So I grew up here in Philly, and I did a lot of arts and arts education. I think it's always important to kind of remember, you know, your past as well as my past. And, you know, I started out as a black and white documentary photographer. I was very interested in civil rights and homelessness. So as a teenager, my parents got divorced. I felt homeless. My mom and I lived in like 6 houses in 1 year. And so then that became like something I was interested in looking at. So that was like my first like connection between like me and photography and the outside world, right? So it's like me, photography, the outside world. So it's this like catch, like a ball catch all the time, right? So it's you, your camera, the outside world, and then whatever you're choosing to capture, whatever you're choosing to look at, whatever you're choosing to arrange or photograph. So these become this dialogue between you and your world, right? And what you want to say in your world. And there's so much to be learned from looking at things, right? So like that early journey I had in my life, I looked so closely at homelessness, right? At what those, who those people were, what their conditions were. And the camera gave me an excuse to go to them, to search them out, to find them, to photograph them, to process, right? So this is like this is just the way artists act, right? Like, so we pick a subject matter, we start playing with it, we look at it. So, you know, and I used to be a snob, a photo snob. I mean, I really was. I considered myself a very highly educated, you know, photographer. I did the 10,000 hours of darkroom processing and printing, and I worked professionally in that industry. Now, I don't care if you're taking a picture, you know, with your phone, a Polaroid, if you're taking a picture of a Xerox copy of something, like, no, balls to the walls, like all of those restrictions have just like faded off of me like over the years. So if I could personally, just in my, years of experience, give you permission to just go with your heart. If you see a vintage flower or a wallpaper flower or a printed flower or an embossed flower, like these are things just everywhere around you. Flowers when you're walking the dog, right? Flowers growing naturally outside. So I'm really evoking all of these influences, right? The universe of influences to include in my work, which is sometimes overwhelming, but most of the time just allows me to kind of move through and explore a lot of options. Okay, so one of my teachers in college, her name was Linda Connor. She's an amazing photographer herself. She actually photographs primarily sacred spaces in the world. So temples, caves, like she travels and she uses an 8x10 view camera, but she did a class called Sacred and Profane. And we started out every class with a slideshow and like Tibetan monks music, like or angels singing music, or church organ playing, like holier than thou music. And we were just inundated with imagery, right? Imagery. And to me, like, I am constantly looking, I'm constantly searching at my work and other people's work, right? So books, internet, magazines, even movies, right? I mean, even television, movies and things that are well done like that. So I'm going to try to screen share. I made this slideshow. I didn't do the music part, although I probably could have, but oh wait, sorry. So this is my folder. So I tried to really pick pictures, and I'm going to show them to you in Bridge too. And I don't know, exactly what everybody's favorite software is, but I'm going to see if I can do this. And I'm not going to, I mean, maybe I will talk a little bit. So this is an artist named Mark Sink. No, I didn't do that. Okay, Mark Sink, who does tintypes. So let me see how this is going to go. I want this. This is Elizabeth Messina, Ellen Rogers, Andy Warhol. Oh, Leah McDonald. Wait. Miscellaneous, unidentified. Monet. Okay. This is Kristen Hodgke, vintage floral, design book, like a fabric design book, wall painting, still life, tattoo, Georgia O'Keeffe. Vintage flower art, flower diagrams, Camille Wagner, Vogue magazine, again, Vogue magazine, Vogue. They did the same thing that I did this winter. How funny. Vogue magazine, vintage florals, commercial photography, Dolce & Gabbana, vintage photo. My God, so beautiful. This is one of my very first still life photos ever from, I think I was about 17. This is also a 4x5 view camera image. So these are mine. This is a Type 55, a sunflower field. In the Wissahickon, this is mine. This is mine in the Eastern State Penitentiary. This is Yazbel LeMay. Also photography. This is photography. Paul Kava. Oh, Justin Imber, a guy from London, like so cool. This is his too. I know, really beautiful, right? I love these so much. Van Gogh. Leah McDonald. Leah McDonald. Uh-oh, we're gonna get a little heavy on the Leah McDonald's right here. Leah McDonald. This one's one of mine. This is one of mine too, Leah McDonald. This one's one of mine. This is one of mine. Also one of mine. One of mine. 4x5 view camera. This is also one of mine. This is pastels. This is dry chalk pastels on a black and white photo. So interesting to think about that for a second. Elizabeth Messina. Lillian Bassman. Ophelia. Anastasia Kravecki. This is neat. This is a double exposure. Another double exposure. This is Leah and Elizabeth together, and then I painted it. This is this is a floral abstraction. So this is some of my newest work. And this too, this is just encaustic. So I kind of wanted to show the difference of like, this had a photo behind it, and this had figures and photos, right? This had nothing, no photos, just stencils, right? So just encaustic. This too, just encaustic. So that's interesting, right? To think no photographic image. This is one of mine. Klimt. Old-fashioned still life. Japanese print. Oh, sorry, these are tiny. These are tiny. Sorry, they're tiny files. I'll fix them. Old-fashioned print. Mark Zink. This one's mine. This one's also mine. And this one we're going to use in the workshop this weekend. This one. This is some history, just floral art, right? Just floral painting. Like this one is so beautiful. This is Brigitte Cochran, who also is a very well-known photographer. Olivia Parker, these little ones, Olivia Parker, and I'm going to fix those in a second. Hold on. Oh, and Tom Judd. Okay, so hold on. I have to get out of here. Back to Mark's thing. So let me see if I can make a couple of those bigger. Like, okay, so this is Camille. The problem is this is Camille. Can everybody see that? But it's going to lose its resolution if I go too much bigger, right? So Camille Wagner. I wanted to definitely show Tom Judd, right? He's a painter and uses found object collage and photographs in his work. And Olivia Parker, she's a pretty well-known photographer, pretty famous photographer, Olivia Parker. Let me see if I can make this one bigger, right? So a lot of things have been covered in this slideshow, right? A lot of things, setup, lighting, right? Using a figure, not using a figure, right? So a lot of different types of floral photography just in that slideshow, right? So standard still life photography, I think, is a flower in a vase, right? I mean, just, a vase and flowers, and you arrange them and you photograph them. For me, sometimes it doesn't end there. Like, that's just the beginning. Like, I might set them up, photograph them until I'm tired of photographing them, and then maybe leave them. Just leave them. And what do they look like 3 days later, right? Mm-hmm. What do they look like as they start to deteriorate, right? So what happens as they start to dry? How does the water change, right? So just from that still life, I, might pull a bunch out, right? And lay a bunch on a table around, or move them in that way, right? So I wanted to show you guys a study. I I knew I was going to teach this workshop, and I asked Rebecca one day when she came to the studio, another reason to have a nice, beautiful young assistant, mentor, whatever, is that you can ask her to model for you occasionally, or hold something for you, or pop a dress on, get a couple pictures. So I knew I was going to do this workshop. So I did a challenge. I challenged myself specifically to show you guys what I could do in one day with one bouquet of flowers. Okay, so one day, one bouquet of flowers. And our goal, we specifically set a goal, we were going to pick 6 looks. Well, guess what? We didn't make it to 6. We totally burned out at 5. Like completely burned out. Like we were both so tired. Like I literally felt like I just like hiked like 50 miles. So, but I'm going to show you, the results of what I chose from the edit. And I'm going to show you sort of how I ran through it and what we made, because I think it's interesting to see, like, I wish I had it probably would have been nice to have made a video of this, but it's called, okay, so I called it Flower Study, right? I think I'm going to put it back into Bridge here, and can everybody see this okay? Okay, so I'm going to make it small for a second so you can see the whole thing. So you're going to have to look hard, but this is like the whole thing. So let me show you to you this way too. I'm going to run through it all. So this is what we started with. Okay. So I laid out the flowers that I had, right? Which honestly, okay, so this is what happened to me this summer. And I don't know if this is possible for you, any of you, but maybe next summer, I signed up with a CSA flower farm to be able to go there once a week all summer. So it's June, July, August. It cost a couple $100 to sign up, but I got to go there every Thursday. I did not get to pick the flowers that I wanted. I got to pick up a bouquet. So that was interesting too, because I didn't get to choose texture, color, shape of the flower, right? Which is really important. But I was able to sort of force myself to work within what was given to me, which is also another way you could do it. I mean, if you're going to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or a flower dispensary, or you're growing your own, you have a little bit more precognitive choice about what you're choosing. So I was just working with what I had. Notice here at the bottom, I have a toolkit, right? In my toolkit for every flower shoot, I have clothespins, ribbon, wire, gaffer's tape, scissors, right? And lace. Okay, so those are just like a basic bag. And you can see that bag here at the bottom. Okay, and then these are my dresses. Okay, so now my dresses are a really important part of everything that I do in my studio. I've been collecting vintage dresses since I lived in San Francisco in my 20s, right? Some of them have come and gone. Most of the things I like are 1900s to 1960. I don't really like anything past 1960. Just because it's too polyester, too busy, or but recently there have been some things like that H&M have made or Anthropologie have made that are like okay, but I like my stuff to be thrifty. I also like a certain type of material, so I like silk and Kremlin, cotton, right, and cheesecloth, like anything light, and lace, right? So I love like those 1920s and 30s silk robes and lingerie too. So those are always really big with me. All right, so this was our first look. So you can see this dress right here. This is Rebecca in the dress. And then this was my first arrangement. So I instantly put flowers in her hair. And like, I don't put flowers in her hair like nicely. Like I put them in there. I like just stick them in there. And then I use fairly whatever. I mean, mostly I use clothespins or hair clips or bobby pins, right? I'm not really like overthinking this, because I'm really just kind of trying to think ahead to the painting. Like if I just stick something out on the side, then I might be able to like add more in the painting, right? So I'm just trying to, I'm not trying to be literal even in the photo, because I know the photo isn't the end product, right? I know that this is just a sketch. Like it's just as if I'm like kind of gathering shapes and forms, right? And I don't even pay attention to the color because I don't care. Like the only problem with color and going, because I do everything in black and white. The problem with color is that the darker flowers, right, when they transform to black and white, they're going to be very dark gray. So you have to be careful of that, right? So lighter flowers, lighter clothing generally, but I do like black, sometimes a dark flower or a dark element. Okay, so here's Rebecca. So also I'm like loving these shadows in here. Oh, that's a movie. That was horrible. Okay, that was a movie. So this one I toned through Google. Like I did these in Google, and I'm going to show everybody too how I do this. I also use some other software, which I can talk about in a second, but let me just run through these. So this was another, so this is, and sorry about this. Wait, I gotta delete this one. Okay. So see, this one is just sharper, more contrasty, a little bit brighter. This one's flatter, right? So that's all done in a filter, same picture, right? Same picture in black and white, but more contrasty, right? So this is the one that I would paint, okay? I do these other ones just to kind of like educate myself on what is possible with these flowers and this sort of color palette, but I might paint this one, but probably not. I don't like to paint things with color in them because they become too dominant for me. I like to go to the black and white, okay? Because yes, and I can add the color. I can change the color, right? And even these orange flowers, they're totally like a neutral gray. I can easily paint them. Okay, here's another look we did this day. Okay, so we used a different chair, a different dress, and then I literally just had her sit there and I just stuck the flowers all along her back. Okay, so this is another filter system for that. And then this is the black and white. Okay, now there are still a lot of things I could do to this image, such as, like crop it. Like, so again, like if I was more interested in just her eyes, right? Less about just her arms, right? So I can crop in Photoshop or an editing software, or I can crop in reality, which means I can print it and I can tear it, right? So like this is a completely different image, right? Than including her eyes, right? Or the chair, right? So again, like you kind of need to sort of check in with yourself, like what story are you telling? Like, and this is, I like this image a lot. I mean, as I was looking at it, it's like I was starting to feel like her forehead was maybe a little bit awkward, or maybe the angle wasn't that great, but this becomes much softer, less information, and more about just the gesture, right? And the flowers, right? So it's about lace texture and flowers here. Okay, so that's another possibility. Always cropping, cropping is always a really good possibility. So wait a second, I have to get rid of these movies. I don't know, I do not want these movies to play on you guys again. That was horrible. Hold on. There's a really terrible sound and I don't know, sorry. I don't know why. I just have to get rid of them. Hold on one second. I'm going to take questions in a minute too. Let me just finish I just want to show you guys all the looks that we were able to achieve that day. Okay. All right. So here we go. So then I also, while I was photographing, Rebecca, I was also taking stills of the flowers on the different fabrics that I was using that day. And when I do photos in the studio, I often try to think of on the floor, like working flat on the floor, and I stand over it. And I think I first learned about that type of photography from Sally Mann when she did the pool project. So she basically did a series of photos, you guys, in a kiddie pool on her back porch. Sally Mann, kiddie pool filled with water of her compost. Okay. And then when the compost was looking really pretty, she would pop a couple flowers from a cherry tree nearby and then put a tiny little piece of fabric in there. And she had like just like beauty, right? Incredible natural beauty, right? So So standing over, and I'm going to demonstrate all this stuff in the studio in a second. Okay. So again, just like pictures of the flowers, like different directions with different lace fabrics around them, like over and under, right? And across. Okay. This was our third look. So we changed the background, right? So I have these painted backdrops in my studio that are on canvas that came from a theater company. They were like throwing them away. So look how beautiful they are, right? So I just literally draped it over a piece of plywood, had Rebecca stand there. Also notice, like, I just bunched those flowers and literally clipped them to the back of her head. Like, and then I asked her to hold the other flowers, right? And then that one fell on her lip and I was like, oh, that's amazing. Also lighting, I'll show you guys how I light in the studio in a minute, but I just had one big hot light behind her. So like, even if you look at where I'm sitting right now, like I love this backlighting. So you see how I have this light square behind my head. I love how I'm front lit by this window over here, but this backlight, like if I had flowers here, they would look really good because of the backlighting, right? So I can't ever emphasize how important it is to try lighting in different directions, not always what you're thinking of, front lighting, backlighting, right? Really, really, really nice. And then shooting right into that. Like, I know your camera's not going to want to do that. It's going to like say like, no, but you say, yeah. So exposure, trick it. If you're working with your iPhone, you know, press the different corners, really try to force that to happen. So here it is in black and white, right? So here it is in color, here it is in black and white. So what I could do is, because the color in this is nice, I could print an extra copy of this or have this around me when I go to paint. So I could maybe remember that I had those beautiful like light greens in the background and I had yellow flowers. Now I could totally change it. I could make that background blue, purple, red, right? And those flowers could contrast or match the background, right? So these are all artist choices that you've now gave yourself because you switched to black and white, right? So you shot it like this, but you're going to paint it like that. Okay. Or I do. And also, like, it's interesting to see how this particular flower just like became this crazy gray color. And again, if we wanted to talk about this particular image, let's talk about cropping it. Like, what if I wanted less of the figure, right? Less of the figure and more of the flowers, right? So I could do that, right? I could go right in there and kind of get rid of her. So in a way, I'm using her to spread my flowers out. And you'll watch me like in the next today and tomorrow, I could completely get rid of her. I mean, I could use her to hold my flowers in that beautiful triangle, but I could completely get rid of her. Okay. That's a possibility, right? So this is a possibility. I could also, and I don't know, you know, everybody's level of Photoshop, but you know, these burn and dodge tools, like very simple tools in Photoshop, like I can lighten her face, like I can make her go away. The other thing I do to make things go away is I put gesso on them or I sand them out, right? So here, even as I'm just lightening, like dodging, this is dodging, right? So this is like darkroom stuff, right? So this is like what I know, the old days. I'm just completely lightening her face. So that changes the image so much, right? So it's not a portrait of a woman with flowers. It's just this like ghosted, you know, figure. And even down here, I could use my patch tool, you guys, and I can like start to break away her arm, like get rid of her, right? So now it's like completely spiritual, right? It's gone from like a portrait of a woman with flowers to like I don't know what it is. It's starting to fade. It's starting to shift into something else. Okay. So those are two like fairly simple Photoshoppy techniques that I also apply to my work, which is like using dodging and burning, right? And using the idea of sort of getting rid of stuff. Right? Now, this is like a sort of this picture wasn't that great for me. I was like, okay, she kind of looks like she's at the beach, you know, like sunbathing with flowers. I was like, all right, well, let's see what else we can do with it. In black and white, it's definitely better, but there are some interesting things that are happening here. And when I look at it, the interesting things that are happening are actually like these fun curvy lines of this negligee on her body. I'm not loving her arm or her forearm, but I love these flowers and the center of this. So again, this would also be another perfect picture for me to go into and really, 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 really crop, right? And then also maybe even angle, right? And because she was laying back, I needed her to lay back on the chair, you guys, because I needed those flowers to lay on her, right? So sometimes we have to deal with the gravity, right? So if you want the flowers to lay down on somebody, they have to be leaning back unless you're using glue or tape, right? But look how much more interesting this is than it was in its original, right? And then I can also soften her lips, right? Either in post or in Photoshop here. And now it's a much more interesting picture. Okay, so let me see what else we did this day. We did another still life of these flowers. Now, the reason that I photographed these flowers too on their own, as well as with the model, is that I can use these as collage elements, right? So I can make multiple prints of these flowers that I use with the model, and I can make them big, small, light, dark, okay? And so what I'll end up with when I go into my studio to work with wax is I'll have the picture that I like the best of Rebecca and the flowers, and then I'll have multiple pictures of the flowers themselves. And then I can add them wherever I want. I can almost like restyle her, right, in my studio, right, on the actual artwork, okay, in post. And I can do this as once I'm by myself, I have all of this content, I can do whatever I want. I can reassemble it however I want. Okay, so let me see. Here they are in black and white. All right, and then this was the grand finale. So this was the big look. So this is what these flowers look like in black and white. And then again, remember, these flowers, like I said, I could print these bigger. Does everybody understand when I say bigger? So I can actually, like, if I print a Rebecca, and I'll probably end up doing this for you guys tonight so you can see it tomorrow. But if I print Rebecca 8x10, but I make these flowers 11x14, and then I cut them out, I can put the whole thing back together on a larger canvas. Is that like clicking for people? Right. So, and they can go background or foreground. Now, the other thing you can do is you can really go into your adjustments, however you're doing your Photoshop, and you can really control, you know, how, the levels of these photos. Like if you go brighter, 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 and more contrast, they become more simplified line, right? They lose their form and content. They become just like outside line of the flower, right? And then you have more artistic control over how much you want to paint them, draw on them, right? So this is super fun too, is just take these flower images, you can make them dark and make one copy, make them super light, make another copy. You can make them super contrasty or less contrasty, and then print a couple copies of these and in a couple different sizes. Okay, so from small to big, right? So you could put small ones on her or bigger ones behind her. Scale has really been something that has helped me, I feel like, mature in my artwork. I feel like it's allowed me to go a little bit more complicated. All right, so this would be a perfect example of why I would want to have the individual pictures of the flowers, is because when I try to work on something like this, I would probably make it pretty big because there's a lot going on. So I laid her on the floor of my studio and I got up on a ladder and I laid all the flowers on her. and I got up on the ladder and I photographed from the floor. So you can see the ladder right here, right? But I don't care if the ladder's in the picture. That's like so easy to get rid of. I don't care if my dog's in the picture. Like I can get rid of my, you know what I mean? So like sometimes things end up on the floor. I don't care that I'm on concrete. I like the concrete. I like the lines, right? So also if I don't like them, I know I can get rid of them. Okay. So these are the ones we did on the floor. This is it in black and white. This is another one in color. This is it, her upside down, right? Also closer up, right? So I decided that I really liked this side of the picture better than the other side. And this is just a different angle, right? And if something's on the floor, right, and laid out the way you want it, you're moving around it, right? It's gonna stay still. Maybe she turns her head, but like she couldn't turn her head because I had all those flowers in her hair, right? But very easy to style the flowers when they're laying on the floor, right? And really I could have laid her on anything. I could have laid her on a different back. I could have laid her on a tablecloth or a quilt, or I could have laid her on bigger leaves. I could have laid her on tree branches, right? So I could have made the nest, so to speak, of anything. I like my floor because, and then I often would even use collage to kind of build it up if I wanted stuff underneath there. But then I could just lay all of these things down on the floor. Now, again, if I take this image into Photoshop, right, I can really start to play around with, you know, losing what I call the detail. So if I go like really bright on it, right, brighter and really high contrast, right, I'm just getting like this outside line. I've lost all the texture, but I'm really seeing the flowers. I'm really seeing the flowers, right? So when I go here, she's like all that detail on her dress is really busy, right? And the flowers are secondary. Okay, so it's just interesting to play around sort of with these things too, right? Where the importance of the content lies. Like, and I go brighter, 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 and she fades, the flowers become more important, right? I could also crop this image differently, right? So again, if I'm cropping less for her and more for the flowers, my crop would look something, you know, like this. And again, remember, you can rotate your canvas a little bit, right? And I could even go in a little bit more. I could even go all the way to there, right? And so that becomes much more of a crop about the flowers and less of a portrait of it's still feminine, it's still a woman, but more specifically about the flowers, right? Okay. I'm going to take a pause right there. My God. Okay, I'm going to take a pause right there and just put it back on you guys to see how you like that little challenge we did, and if those things were helpful. Any questions you might have?
I have a question.
Yes.
When I just wondered if I've tried to print, you know, when you go into channels and you try to print just the red channel or you can get some cool effects that way, but I don't know how to, it always prints out the whole photo. So I just wondered if you knew how to do that or.
I've always, you mean you're not flipping your images into black and white? You're just trying to.
Yeah, but they turn out black and white in that. I just didn't know if that was a
I don't know anything about I don't know anything about the channels. I use Image Print, which is a RIP software for my Epson, because at one stage I owned a book company. So I just needed to have a RIP software. Are you printing straight from Photoshop or from Photoshop? Yeah.
But the levels works really good and how you describe that. So
you're talking about controlling contrast?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I do curves or levels, just brightness. And then I also saved. Did everybody know how I saved notice how I saved in additions? So what I like to do is additions of photos. And I'm going to demonstrate another, I like to have in my studio before I start to paint a couple prints of the same image in different tonal ranges, from less contrasty to more contrasty, just because I like to print the same picture. I like to paint the same picture more than one time.
Mhm.
I believe very strongly that you need an intimate connection to an image. You can't just walk in there and do a great painting. And if you do a great painting on a photo, I suggest painting that photo again, at least 2 or 3 more times. Because if you did well the first time, the second and third time are just going to be better. Right? Because you're going to gain confidence about space, spatial relationships, also narrative. And what might happen is that your narrative might get more daring. You might be able to describe more emotion or more of something in as you paint further, right? You might get a little bit braver and riskier about like getting rid of, making it more mysterious or more complicated. So I always try to suggest to people that they shouldn't just walk in there with like one shot, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Give yourself a couple prints and make 2 or 3 versions using the same image.
Okay.
Right. And you saw what I just did. So I basically one day in the studio, one model, one bouquet. And I did 5, right? 5 looks. Now, does anybody want to tell me which one was their favorite picture? I can go back to the pictures. Like, they're not all good. All the looks didn't work out, right?
I like the one that she's laying on the floor, on the ground.
Oh, I
I did-
agree.
The last one.
I
like that.
I agree. But do you see how it took me 4 shoots before that one to get to that one? Right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe other photographers are better, but that's pretty much how I roll, is that if I have a model, I'm going to try as many freaking things, like combos to the lock, as I can before she's like, I got to go. Like, I'm out. You're done. Or I pass out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that day I was like, oh my God, Rebecca, I think I'm going to pass out. Like, that's my new line. Like, or what I told her the other day, I said, I think I'm having a stroke. I got to go. I mean, that's not funny. That's not funny. We shouldn't be feeling like that. But like, I get so excited, right? When I'm working and I'm like holding my breath and I'm like running around, it's like, there's a lot happening. But a couple things I can suggest, if you go back to the photo shoots I just showed you, pull out a couple outfits. Okay, so there's some things I really wanted you ladies to learn from this. One, like, right, you have a shoot day, you have a model. Pull out a couple outfits. Force yourself, change your background, change your angle, right? Change your furniture, right? So standing, sitting, right? Lying down. And I'm talking lying down. I'm talking flat on the ground, shooting over the model. Okay. And then even with that, what else can you do? Right. And then with the flowers, you have so many possibilities, right? So you can try attaching flowers to things, right? I'm going to try, I think it's time to go back out to my studio. I'm sorry. I'm scared because I don't want to lose you. I know, I'm going to go back out to my studio because okay, are you guys ready? So if we get disconnected, I'm going to try, hopefully, let's just hope that we don't. But before I do that, I just want any other questions on either the slideshow or the little shoot that I just showed you guys.
I think I would, do you ever do movement when you're working with the model?
Yes, of course I do movement. Yes. So of course I do. And actually, the movement part really depends, I think, on the model that you're working with. But I also think that you, the photographer, you need to see your model move. You need to know how they move and what looks good with their body, right? So you need to shoot in that way. Yeah. And I definitely asked, I didn't show you guys the whole shoot. Rebecca was moving. And then all the pictures I showed you were when I found something that worked. They have to move. And that's a great point. They have to move. And then you have to see it, what you like, and then ask them to stop, right? especially when you're working with flowers, because then you have to style the flowers, right? So maybe the flowers will fall, but then often I find that I have to like replace them, right? Or maybe add some more once they're in their pose, right? And if you're working with the flowers by themselves, that's not an issue, unless you're, you know, trying to get them like someone's throwing them or right. And I tried to work with flowers with my friend Julia Lehman McTighe is amazing. You guys should all follow her, but she is an underwater photographer. So a couple times this summer we did underwater photography shoots with flowers. So it got pretty intense. Like I did this one shoot. It took me about 6 hours to prep for, but I wired flowers to dresses, because what happens in water is that the flowers want to float. So what I had to do was take picture, you know, jewelry wire, and I wired the flowers to the dress, to the whole dress, right? So that they would still, because otherwise they just come off the dress, right? So they were in her hair, they were floating, but the flowers being attached to the dress helped a lot, right? But that like working in water, it's all about movement, because you can't stop the water from moving, right? And then if
You
someone's in there,
You could wire to the dress as they were running or something like that.
I did wire to the dress. It helped a lot, but the loose ones still were flying and the dress was still flying all over the place. But that was fun. I mean, I that's not my thing. I mean, I liked it, but it's not, underwater is not my thing. I think you know, it's a certain point you just can't do everything, you know? And there's a part of me, like you saw my slideshow, there's a part of me that still just loves classics. Like I'm still, you know, very, very attached to classics, like really just simple beauty. And as much as I like to like mess up things and go far with wax, you know, there's a big part of me that just loves black and white, traditional, tabletop, like still life, you know, beautiful flowers. And I like that quality to be in my work too, you know. I find underwater photography very contemporary, which is fine. It's very contemporary, and it's like glass, it's like very sharp. And some of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. Okay, any other questions on anything I just showed you? And I one other computer thing that I could do right now, so I might as well just do it before we go out in the studio. No other questions about, and I was gonna also talk to you guys about, does anybody want to talk about cameras or lighting? Because I was gonna show you guys what I have in my studio as far as equipment. I'm shooting Nikon. I've pretty much always been, I mean, as far as digital goes, I've always been a Nikon shooter. I do also use my iPhone to sometimes, the thing about the iPhone that I find really interesting is you can really put it in a lot of angles that you might not think about putting your body or your camera. So sometimes it's helpful for me to go over the shoot when I think that I like it with the iPhone, because I feel like it's easy for me to go almost in like up, like over easy on the side, right? Whereas with my camera, I tend to want to be like, you know, here, or I have to physically get up and be over. So if you play with your iPhone first, I think you could get some inspiration from that about how to shoot it with your camera. And I like to go back and forth between both. I also don't think that the iPhone is a bad tool. I think it's a wonderful tool, right? And I think that everybody should be using it as a tool, as a helpful aid or assistant in your photo shoots, and maybe to kind of see things in a different way, like low to high, high to low, right? All the way around, right? So I really love everybody to start thinking about their next shoot too. Like, don't be afraid, you know, high, shooting down, low, shooting up on it, and all the way around, right? Different angles. And also with your lighting, right? So switch sides with your light. If your light is on the right side and you're shooting into it, great. From it, great. And then switch it. Okay. All right. Okay, let me show you one more thing. I printed for this weekend. I'm going to show you the prints that I printed I'm going to do one of these tonight, and I'm going to talk about scale. So I might do this one, right? You guys like this one, or do you like the full body one better? I love your feedback, so please tell me. Do you like this one? I want to make everybody happy, so whatever joy I can possibly install.
Yeah,
I can do
like that
this
one.
one, the full body.
I like the crop one better. I think there's more mystery to
Yeah.
it.
You
I
like
like
this?
the cropped
you like
one.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
one, the one I cropped. Okay, good. So you
Yeah.
guys,
Crop
good.
one.
I do too. So what I can do with this, so my mind goes in, and this is actually a photo that I've been wanting to do. So I've been wanting to create more of environments for my subjects so that I'm really combining two worlds. So I can take these flowers and I can do like a solid floral, like she's laying in a field or on a mattress of the flowers. So that's going to be my goal. So I'm going to print, right? Like, just like I said, I'm going to print probably like 10 prints of this print. I think this is the best one, right? Or this one, right? I can do this one and this one. I'm going to print it in black and white, and then I'm going to collage it so it goes all under, right? All under her arm. And then, so what I'll have to do is I'll have to cut her out. I'll print her and I'll cut her out along that sleeve line, and I'll make the canvas bigger than her, and I'll lay her on the flower. So I'll demonstrate, that'll be our, so we just figured it out. So that'll be our thing we do tomorrow. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I'm excited. Thank you. That's a great idea. All right. So I'm just going to show you a couple other things that I printed. Oh, sorry, for our time together. And I feel like this, I printed this one. I think it's pretty cool. It's an older picture, and it's actually it is actually a gelatin silver print, but I wanted to show you the Alien Skin software, which gives it this like tone, right? So this would be it in black and white, right? And then this is it like maybe with a T-tone or some type of warmer tone, right? And this is like a collodion or a calotype maybe with like distressed edges. And this would be like a selenium tone, right? So it's like purple. Now, in the old days in the darkroom, I used to do these tones chemically. Now with the Alien Skin software, I can do them as digital filters. So Alien Skin is an app that you plug into your Photoshop. It's called Exposure 4. And basically it looks like this. So when I plug the photo in, I get to see it like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I just, hold on a second. I get to see it like this. Hold on, I just have to make this. I get to preview it like this. Does that make sense? So the software allows me to get to see the same image in all of these different tones with all of these different edges, which is just another option, right? And these filters, they're doing certain things to your photos, right? So they're adding contrast, they're adding black, they're lightening or darkening, and they're adding a color in the white in the background, right? The neutral colors. Now there are other ways to do this, right? So other ways that you can do this are, of course, T-toning these prints, which I've been doing again recently, right? So creating a tea bath of any of the teas. So English breakfast, Irish breakfast, orange pekoe, they should be caffeinated. I don't have any luck with the herbal teas. So I like the caffeinated teas. And then you put them in a tray, a darkroom tray or a cookie sheet, and you soak them, for an hour to overnight. And I can show you some examples. I have these. So I still love, because of my alchemistic darkroom background, I still love the wet processes, right? I still like the basics of photography, the burning, the dodging, the contrast filters, and the toning, right? So the browns, the pinks, the light blues of traditional photography, right? And this is the type of stuff that I do to the prints before I even think about waxing them. Okay. And one of the ways you can do this is with gesso and also watercolor paint and tea. So you don't have to buy Alien Skin, right? You just could do this by hand. Okay. So there is you know, a really strong pull for me always to be able to do things either in the computer or by hand. Okay. Okay. So I printed this one, and I also printed I also printed something I thought would be easy for everybody to see kind of what I was doing. So these were my photos I did over the winter, right? So this is my mannequin bust with magnolias. And this is, again, exactly like what I did with Rebecca, right? Is I went out, and don't tell my neighbors, but I go out early in the morning with my IKEA bag, my big yellow IKEA bag, and my clippers. And I borrow, right? So I started in March, and I was selectively borrowing up to yet borrowing, but it was a good investment, right? I mean, so, but I have a really nice park near me that the horticultural center takes care of, but I don't take a lot. I just need a few, right? So these were, of course, the, you know, the magnolia, or what are these are the magnolias, right?
Yeah,
So then I did them. So I did them on the mannequin bust. I did them on the floor, right? I did them with the mannequin and a dress, right? So you guys can start to see, again, like same thing. Like I took the flower and I didn't just do one thing with it, right? I literally spent a half a day. Okay. So I looked around the studio, all the shit I could find. And listen, I did this all winter. I mean, I had no models. The pandemic was happening. I was like, you know, freaking that out. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to do something. So I started this little thing. I would go for this walk. I would cut some flowers. I'd come home. I'd find some stuff in my studio, and I'd make a scene, and I'd photograph it. Right. So I never stood this up. This is actually just a piece of like foam, like light blue foam board. This is my mannequin bust, a torn dress, my magnolia branches, and a piece of tin. Okay. But like, it doesn't even look that great in the photo, but I know I can paint it into something. Right. And this is like a close up of it. Right. So it got so much better even close up, because you're not seeing that it's just foam or whatever. You're just all evoked by, and this goes back, you guys, to that picture that I took when I was 17 of that picture frame with my favorite little nightshirt, some flowers, and a half a glass of spilled wine. I mean, if that's not my life story, I don't know. You know, that's like this. That's it. It doesn't get much better than that. Okay, so and then this is what I did to them. This is what I did to them in the post processes, right? So you saw them in color, and this is them in black and white. Okay, so let me see, right? So these are the ones I'm going to paint this weekend, right? So this is, again, like lighter and paler, high key, more contrast. Okay. Super, like the lace is super high key, contrasty, right? This is like, again, alien skillful. Like now I can see the lace. I can like, this is a piece of old stationery paper, the magnolias, right? The lace. And this is just another version of it. Okay. The mannequin bust, again, just my white wall, the mannequin bust, and these flowers. This is them in like, you know, this, I don't know, wet type, straight black and white. Okay. This is that same, the mannequin bust is a dress in black and white. And I don't fuss too much with the photo. Like I'm going to be able to really fuss with it in the studio. I'm not going to worry that much about it. This one has a little, I added a little light leak here at the top so that the light looks like it's coming across. And it's weird. Like this one looks definitely flat, but this one looks like it could be standing up, right? Just by that light, like the light coming from the top, and the shadows going down makes it look like it's actually vertical. Okay. And this is the close up. And this is the, like, look at, like, this is like, whatever, but like, this is so much better, you know? Contrast is key. I seriously, and the more they look like drawings to me when I start out, the more successful I am with them overall. Okay, to paint them. So the less they look like photos and the more they look like drawings. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. Was that helpful?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And this was the first one, you guys, this was the first one of 2020 that I did. And I think I photographed about 15 dress sets this winter. So that was like some serious workout for my dresses. All right, so I'm gonna try to go out to the studio now. It's 1:37, and let's hope for the best with the Zoom. If I lose you, I'll try to get right back on. But I'm just gonna show you guys my studio space and the lights that I use. And you can talk to me while I'm walking. Hopefully I don't lose anybody. But any questions on anything that we've done so far?
Is anybody going to be using models when we shoot today?
We could. I wasn't.
I don't have it.
No, I don't have any either.
Yeah, and
Or I use myself sometimes. I do that.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Are you guys going to shoot on lunch break? Is that what you're thinking? You're
Shoot,
more than
you tell
welcome.
us.
I mean, all right, so we're in my studio. Let's see how this goes.
Oh, good.
So far, so good. Okay. So this is my set. This is my studio. So I have a white wall, and I have two chairs, but I have lots of chairs. I have a window and two more windows. This is my dress collection, right? So I probably have like 25 vintage dresses there. And then this is my floor, right? So this is pretty much my work. I also have two skylights, right? So most of what I do, I try to do available light shooting. And it's usually 3/4, generally flat, right? Like generally pretty flat lighting. I do also have this ARRI, this one hot light, right? But you could use a clip-on light, you could use a hot light, you could use a video light, right? So there's a lot of lights available. And if people want specific lighting, I do think that lighting changes everything, okay? Changes everything. So a lot of the, drama or highlights and things like that can happen in a photo are with lighting. And it's fun to be able to control exactly what your lighting is and how it works. So I did buy some flowers. For today. And we could do, I was going to do like just a little setup of flowers, but it wasn't specific for today. If you guys wanted to be shooting during your lunch break, you absolutely can. But I think I was going to use those images that I've already did of Rebecca. So I feel like I didn't want to waste your time, you guys watching me shoot. Do you want to actually watch me shoot? I wasn't going to do that, but I could.
No, it's fine.
I feel like yeah, go ahead.
I'd rather see you do the encaustic, see what you do with the encaustic. I mean,
Yeah.
like I can deal with the shooting part of it.
Okay.
An hour, and also an hour isn't enough for me to shoot it. I need more time than that.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think you're good. I mean, I did the figurative workshop and that worked out really well. People were able to, watch me sort of move the model. And then I was able to share the photos, but I'm assuming that you all have photos that you want to be working on for this. Or, that you're more interested in the encaustic techniques and kind of just behind the scenes. So I want to make sure I'm going to go over my list real quick though. I wanted to make sure that I demonstrated flowers on their own, flowers with the dresses, flowers on a tabletop, flowers on the floor, right? And then of course, flowers with the model, right? So those are kind of like my list of things that I go through with the flowers when I have them, right? So like, for example, I have this, like I bought these, this little arrangement, right? So I picked these out at the store and I like to pick the ones that I think have the most textural shape that I could emulate in the encaustic, right? So these guys are awesome. I mean, these guys are just beautiful. And then it's always nice for me to have like a contrary shape, a sort of a contrasting shape, if you want to call it, to something very feminine or floral, right? And then of course I love these, and I love the color. And these are really easy to paint too and encaustic. So I can kind of demonstrate that. I tend not to like regular roses, or I do like lilies. I mean, everybody kind of has probably their own flowers. I really like the ones that are around the neighborhood, like that are natural, right? That are, or like vines too. I like a lot of foliage. My house is covered and my yard is covered with the vines. So I often use a lot of vines in my work, and I shoot out in my yard. So how many of you are like outside shooters? Right. So I can show you too, like in my yard, I use my yard all the time. And I have put props and stuff in my yard. So like right now we have these old doors in my yard, which are pretty cool. And I have this huge like ivy wall too. But if you have any type of like, I mean, this is just I could not make this background, right? I mean, and those are my doors, right? And then I've been known to even just hang a sheet outside too, right? So then I have full, and then yesterday I did, right? So these doors, like, even if you took a piece of plywood and started painting it and left it out over the winter, guess what? Next year it's going to look like that, right? So these are incredible. The white sheet. I mean, I've been doing the white sheet in the yard for years. For years. I mean, and then of course, you can add a ladder or a chair or anything like that. So I'm very lucky to have this wall. I mean, you can see the other corner of my yard over there. I have another piece of wood where I've also done photo shoots outside, right? And then the ivy or a tree, you can tie things to the tree and add flowers in the background. You can make sets. Even if you built like an arbor. Here in my studio too, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like I had flowers in one of my shoots hanging from the ceiling, right? So I literally I got up there on a ladder, I tied like 5 or 6 strings, and then I tied the flowers to the end of the strings so that they were hanging over the model. You really just want to start thinking outside the box about layers, especially about layers. I did want to mention on my list, there's a garden. I don't know, and nobody else here lives in Philadelphia, but there is one garden, horticultural center, that's really taught me a lot about flowers too, and that's called Chanticleer. And you can probably look them up online, but their gardening style is layered. So that their flowers are not, they're not groomed to be equal size or stacked. They're very organic, so that when you look through the garden, you're looking, from low to mid level through, and then the high ones come over. So it's a certain type, like French. I think it's more like French gardening, right? So I really enjoy that type of gardening, more wild and loose, where you're. And I like that feeling when you're looking at a piece of art that you're looking. There's stuff in the foreground, that you're able to travel through it, that it's not appearing flat. Okay, so we went over setup, studio setup, inside and outside. I often really try to do both if I'm shooting at my house. I also really like my model to be, like I said earlier, standing, vertical, on the, even on the ground, and also against a background, but then also no background, right? And I am a shallow depth of field shooter. So most of my photos I want to shoot at f4 or 5.6 if I'm using a lens with a camera with a lens. My iPhone doesn't have depth of field. I don't know if some people's iPhones have lenses, but I don't. So I don't tend to want to use my iPhone pictures other than just for like reference. I mentioned, let me show you guys too, just a couple, I wanted to show you a couple things from my styling bag, which for some reason, I don't even know where it is right now. but I use this hemming ribbon, which is really helpful. I buy like long ribbons like this. Do you know where the hemming ribbon is?
Mm-hmm.
I use this stuff all the time too. It's called Hug Snug. And it's super beautiful. It's actually hemming, washable seam binding ribbon, but I use it for everything. So if I have flowers, like come here wait, Rebecca, come here for a second. I'll demonstrate on Rebecca. Okay. So like if I was gonna photograph Rebecca, I might like take these flowers, you know, and I might just take this, can you grab my pair of scissors? I might take the hemming ribbon and then I just might like tie them together, right? So, and then like this sort of just becomes beautiful. I mean, this just beautiful, right? So the ribbon's beautiful, whatever. And then I might just tie them together and I could make it more, you know, tie them more, right? So it's like, it's just like playfulness, right? And nothing's permanent and you're not like hurting the flowers and the ribbon's gorgeous. And then I could just start to think like, okay, well, where do they look good? You know, like on Rebecca, like, and then I can just start play like here, right? And then here, turn around for a second. So like anything that I do to like tie these to her, like even if I tie this into her hair like a ponytail, like then I can, once I have it in there, then I can move it around, right? And then I've also created like a loop here, right? And I can move them and adjust them. And then I can put like, then I can have her tilt your head a little bit. And she also has like a clip right here, right? So then that's like, right? And then I can figure out how to best like photograph those. And then if I have more of the same kind, like she can be holding one here, right? So I can start thinking about too, like connected lines, you know, and then like how far off. And if this one's too straight, then I can start thinking about what else I can put there to fill that space, right? So you're the designer, right? You're gonna figure out like I could do this line, right? Which is nice, or I can cover up her ear, right? So again, like a lot of times I'm using my model more to make my flowers look good. And I'm using these very simple sort of flower binding, using this hemming ribbon, bobby pins, clips, you know, and then like I said, I did use the wire for the underwater thing just because I really wanted to try the flowers, keep the flowers on the dress. But, and I love the floor. You know, I love shooting down on the floor. All right. So let me see. Let me check my list. Ribbon, any type of ribbons like this, right? Like any fat, awesome to have around, right? To use both in your artwork and putting your flowers together. All right, so we talked about various print styles. We talked about scale. We talked about cropping. We talked about tone, contrast. Okay, so I'm going to talk 1 second about paper types. And so I've been sponsored by Hahnemühle Paper for, I'm going to say I'm like eight years or more. I think I started going to does everybody know what WPPI is? Wedding and Portrait International Conference they used to have in Vegas. But I used to go there every year. And I think that started in, I wanted to say like 2006. Okay, so that's a long time. I think 2008, Hahnemühle started sponsoring me. So I use the 188. I can write this down in the chat room too. I use the Photo Rag 188. I use the William Turner, the 190. I use the rice paper, which I think is 90, right? So these are grams per meter. I also, if I want to work not mounted, or if I want a thicker paper, I might use the Photo Rag 308. Okay, and that's Hahnemühle, right? And the reason I use these is because they're smooth and made with high quality pulp. Okay, so these are inkjet prints. Pulp, how do you spell pulp? Yep. And these are inkjet prints. And I use the 3880. Now that's an old printer. I don't even think they make the 3880 Epson anymore. So that was like the lowest grade. That was the lowest model they even sold at the time. I think it was $800. Okay. So we talked about papers. And next we're going to talk about, when we come back after lunch, we're going to talk about prepping prints for painting. So they're kind of all of those organic Photoshop techniques that I started to talk about in Photoshop. So that's like burning and dodging physically, right? Painting with gesso, cutting out, right? So adding kind of masking. And I really like to talk about types of panels, what that final artwork is going to look like maybe. And I also like to talk about Andy Warhol, which might sound funny, but I got to see his show at the Whitney, I want to say last year. And I've been obsessed with his layering techniques. So the idea of printmaking and silk screening. So I actually learned how to do jelly plate printing. Has anybody ever experimented with that?
I have, yeah.
So I highly recommend that too, like as an alternative art. I mean, I think one of the things I realized about my career and just my techniques in general was that the more that I practiced other art forms, the more I could bring back to the table to my photography work.
Very true.
Right. So that's one of the things too. Like I think I said when we started out today that, you know, being an artist has always been, you know, a challenge for me and my family to gain the respect of my, you know, doctor siblings and, you know, just to feel as worthy and as educated and intelligent as and important as other people. And one of the things that I kind of have always done for myself has been looking and examining things outside of just what I do in art. So looking at other artists, looking at sculptures, understanding the history of art, understanding how art and society are connected and how everything that artists are doing is directly affected by what's going on in the world, our techniques and our tools, right? Like the tools that we're using right now, you know, and what's available to us as humans to even make art with. So Andy Warhol was a genius, right? And his subject matter, his content was not that important. It was very based on consumerism, actually, and really on capitalist society. But and then what he was able to create with just a very simple design, like the 4 flowers, for example. When we come back from lunch, we'll talk about it. But I want you guys to start to think about that, like, and that's what I tried to get you to start to think about with the shoot with Rebecca, was like background choice, right? Textured, moving, draping, patterned, color, right? Then form, content, like what is the figure? Is she bending? Is she straight? Is she over? Like if you're using a person, what is the body language, right? If you're using a vase, what is the vase shape, right? And then the flowers, and what are the flowers doing? You know, where are they going up? Are they going out? Are they falling over? Are they making a circle, right? Where are they around her? Like, are they exploding, right? I think I love that idea of flowers exploding, right? I mean, what is that? That's like, you know, that's what they do when they bloom, they explode, right? So it makes sense. And it also is about a lot of emotion exuding out. So these are things that I like to think about. And then what Andy Warhol did is he just like drilled it into this formula, and he was able to make multiple pieces, right? By switching the colors, really just by switching the colors. And also the contrast, right? Which played with people's eyes about whether the images were doubled or not. So super kind of fun things to think about, and also ways to examine color possibilities. So we'll talk about that when we come back, and we'll also talk about cutting out stuff. And moving stuff around on the canvas and choosing your canvas size, right? So even if you have your photo, you can still take that photo and add it to another canvas. Does that make sense? Okay, so changing the canvas size. And then we'll also talk about abstraction when we come back, and we'll just be getting ready for tomorrow, which I don't think we're going to be waxing today. I think we're going to have a lot to do in the afternoon with just those ideas.
I don't have anything shot yet, so I'll shoot.
I think you should. I think, well, everyone has a break from 2 to 3.
Right.
So you could be doing a number of things.
Right.
You could be drinking some tea. You could be photographing some flowers. You could be grabbing your niece or your daughter and trying to style something. You could be working in Photoshop on images that you already have, right? You could be adding contrast or cropping, right, to images that you already have. You could be watercoloring some pictures that you have, right? You could be cutting pictures out from a magazine or Xeroxing pictures, found pictures, right? You could be looking at source material for extra flowers, right? That was the sort of the reason that I wanted to show, let me just show it again. But like all of this source material, you know, like this is source material to me, right? This is source material. So this is something that I would take and cut these flowers out and then add them to a model or add them to another flower. This is also source material. So I would use this and maybe draw an element or use that shape or look at those colors, right? Love that blue and orange, right? This is the Andy Warhol that I was talking about. So this is what we're going to talk about a little bit when I come back. This is also source material, right? So Xerox copying this or tracing this with tracing paper, you know, and then cutting the tracing paper out and adding it to your photos, right? As a collage elements, right? These Vogue, now you guys can see too, like I showed you, this is what I did all COVID, right? Is I took my dresses and it's amazing, right? That Vogue did that. If you have a dress and you have some flowers and you want to take it outside, hang it from a tree and put a bunch of flowers sticking out of the neck, like, right? Even out of a bag, right? A brown bag. What about a brown bag? I mean, right? What about taking all the flowers and sticking them out of the top of a brown bag, right? Or a brown bag with a bunch of holes in it, or a burned up brown bag, right? Or some newspaper. How about crumpling up some newspaper? Right. This I showed you too for a really neat idea, right? This is an old frame with a shirt in it, right? This is the one I did when I was 17, right? So, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm just working really hard to do something I've already done. So a frame, right? And then laying the shirt in it. And what if you had a couple other objects in there, then the shirt goes over it. Also wetting the shirt, right? Wetting the shirt, then laying the flowers around the shirt. You know, taking a close up of some flowers that you have. A tabletop still life, right?
That's so cool.
I know his work is really cool, really, really cool. Okay, so. Oh, these two, I never did blow these up. So these are so hard. They're like so tiny. I'm sorry. This is like really. I mean, right? Just, and also simple is beautiful, right? We can never deny how beautiful simplicity is, right? I mean, these flowers have it going on. You know, it's really nice to always be humbled by your subject matter. These are just simple hand-colored black and white photos of flowers. I mean, she did a really good job with these. Okay, so it's 2 o'clock. We're gonna break, and thank you, Zoom God, for keeping us together. We got most of our time, except for that 15-minute downtime from 12:15 to 12:30, but we can make it up someplace. And if there are there any questions?
Leah, you had mentioned Justin. Sorry, what was his name? I didn't
Okay,
get
so here's my list. Here's my list. So Andy Warhol. So in the slideshow, and I'll put the slideshow in Google, and everybody can have it as a Google album. And if you want me to, I can even send it as a zip if you want it. But it was Andy Warhol, Olivia Parker, Yazbel LeMay. Here, I'll type it. Hold on. Andy Warhol, Olivia Parker. Someday I'm going to just teach a history of photography class because from my perspective. Van Gogh, Tom Judd, Justin, his name was Justin Mortimer, Ellen Rogers. And you know what? A lot of times you guys, every time before I know I have a photo shoot, I often just spend 5 or 6 minutes looking at any one of these people. But I mean, these are my people. Consistently, I look at them, right? And then I go to the shoot, right? I mean, and sometimes I Xerox copy stuff, or I screenshot stuff that I really like, whether it's just like a pose or a mood, or a color palette, right? Okay, so we know who Andy Warhol is. Olivia Parker did the still life ones of the flowers like on the shelves. Isabel does these really fanciful Photoshop garden looking ones, like fantasy gardens. Van Gogh, we know, is classic tabletop still life. Tom Judd does I have a Tom Judd book. He does like grit. His stuff is like gridded, and it has a very vintage feeling to it. Like, right. So it's like he's combining like landscapes and sort of wallpaper. They have like a wallpaper feel to them. I'm going the wrong way. There you go. Okay, and Justin Mortimer did those cool ones they were decaying bouquets. Actually, Rebecca, can you hand me that bouquet? So I have had this, the decayed one. Yeah, bring them both over, actually. I've had this decayed bouquet in my studio. So, like, I can't let it go. I mean, it's gonna go. It's gonna. Why can't I pin myself? Okay, pin. Okay, so I mean, this you might say they get better with age, right? I mean, they just get so cool, right? Do you have one too? I mean, right? But it's
dried okra.
Oh my God. Like, look at this. These are lilies though. Like, it doesn't get more beautiful. Like, really? I mean, I just want to like wax them, like, right? Like, I just don't ever want them to go away, but I feel like they're going to stay like this now. But I photographed this like already like a million times. I mean, like at least once a week, I've already photographed this, So I should do it with a nude, and then I could do it like in someone's, I've done it in the jar, with a little bit of water. Like everything has meaning. But that's what Justin did, is he photographed like the dying bouquets, right? The dying bouquets. All right. So I'm gonna let you guys go eat or play or photograph. And we'll come back. I have my prints already printed, and we'll come back at 3. Okay, and then we'll do gesso, sandpaper, tearing edges, prepping for waxing for tomorrow. Okay. And we can go over supplies. Okay. All right. Awesome. Bye. I'll see you guys in an hour. Okay.